Good evening, everyone. Welcome back if you're joining us for a second or third or fourth or fifth time today. And welcome to all of you who are coming online for the first time today. I'm with Jacob Medler, who owns Jacob Medler Photography. And before we get into questions with Jacob, which I'm really excited about because we haven't covered the photography subject at all, so we have lots to talk about tonight. I want to remind you of a few things. To win the prize, you must have your first and last name as a participant. If it says iPhone, we don't know who you are, so you won't win. We do have to confirm when we draw names for prizes that you are a registered couple with Wedding Shows Windsor. So make sure to have your first and last name as your participant name, and you can go into the participant button to change your name. I'd like to thank Anything and Everything, as well as Sweet Revenge Bake Shop, for providing my background scenery. I also want to remind everyone that we do have the most extensive shop online directory now in this whole region at weddingshows.com. So if you go to the shop online directory, we are adding vendors every week. A lot of our vendors have Wedding Shows Windsor specials, so make sure to check and see what's up on there for your specials, and check your gift bags. Use those gift bags until you get married because there are a lot of discounts in there as well. We do have a number of vendors who are loyalty vendors. So if you hand in your receipts to us after you get married from those loyalty members and it adds up to 5,000 or more, there's 3 different levels of gifts. We will send you one gift depending on your level of spend. So lots of ways that we're helping you plan and helping connect you with our wedding businesses. Jacob, welcome.
Thank you so
I
much for having me.
I'd like to tell everyone a little bit about you. Jacob Medler is a professional wedding photographer who specializes in candid moments. While helping couples feel comfortable in front of a camera, he also captures those little moments you might have missed. Jacob's style of work is timeless and classic while still being extraordinarily creative. So you'll have amazing memories to last decades. And last decades is really, really, something that's so important, isn't it, Jacob?
For sure, yes. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you. So we'll start right off with a couple is
Sure.
getting married. It's going to spend the most time on their wedding day with their photographer, more than any other supplier. You basically, start early in the day with them and end later into the evening. So with that in mind, what should a couple look for when looking for a photographer to hire for their wedding day?
Yeah, so there's actually, I would say there's 2 main parts to hiring a photographer. The first you have is their style and their photos, their portfolio. So this can be their editing, how they pose, and all their images. The other is them as a person, and you connect with them. So for sure, when hiring, hop on a Zoom call, hop on a phone call, get to talk to them, get to know them, have them get to know you, see if you connect. If you're looking for someone who's super detail orientated and serious, find someone who matches that. Or if you're looking for someone a little more fun and can have a sense of humor too, find someone who matches that. I like to think of my couples, my future couples, as just friends I haven't met yet. And along with this, make sure you check Google reviews as well, because there's a lot of helpful knowledge there as well.
Jacob, that was always the beauty of the wedding shows is couples could go around and someone they might have thought they wanted to use, they might not have that connection when they meet them in person. So, that's the beauty of not only these workshops, but I really highly suggest to couples to get on a Zoom call, get on a call to talk to your suppliers as in person as you can, because that connection is very, very important. These are the people you're going to be working with for a long time. And like I say, the photographer is the person you're going to be working with most on your wedding day. That photographer is going to be hanging out with you all day. So if you really don't like them very much because you don't connect, your personalities clash, it's probably not a good idea to hire that person no matter what the quality of their work is. I just had to hire a new accountant. My accounting firm dropped small businesses. So I went on Zoom call and I knew immediately through my 3 Zoom call interviews who I connected with and wanted to hire. So I think it's a great
For sure.
idea to connect that way. Um, what should
Yeah.
couples ask their photographers when they do meet with the photographer?
Um, so of course, any questions that you might have on your mind, but also some other questions that you might not think of. First off is how many images will I receive? So they probably won't be able to give you an exact number because every wedding is different. And it's based on, do you have a second photographer? How many hours of coverage do you have? But it's nice to have kind of a range of images you'll get. Um, and some photographers actually hold back a lot of images for some reason and kind of only deliver the best ones. I like to kind of give a larger variety of images so couples can pick through, but you want to kind of get a good range. Another question you can ask is, what is your style? Of course, you can see their editing through work they already have. But when they actually take the photos, are they staying in one spot? Do you walk around? Do you keep moving? Do you do lots of candids, or are you posing everything just perfectly? Kind of find a style that matches yours and go from there. Some photographers are also weirdly, this isn't me, but if people are like laughing for like family photos or bridal party photos, they won't take those photos and they'll just wait till everyone's smiling. So you want someone who matches that or is taking kind of maybe the laughing ones if you want that. If not, find someone else. You can also ask what happens if you get sick or can't show up on the wedding day.
Great question.
Yes. So there's different options with this depending on how soon it is to the wedding. If it's a bit before, they'll probably try to find a suitable replacement or give you your deposit back. If it's like the day of, if you already have a second photographer showing up, you already have for sure one person coming to your wedding, and they'll try to find someone to replace them as soon as possible. But ask them, and this should also be in the contract as well, and state that out. And then also, how long after your wedding date will you receive your images? Both my brothers got married, and I think they both took over a year to get their images back, which is just insane to me. You should, like, editing is a time-consuming process, but you should get your photos back fairly soon. Yeah, and hopefully just ask them and get kind of a date on there. You can also make sure that's on the contract as well. And then maybe another question you can ask, most photographers are good at this, but how do you keep my photos safe? Do you back it up to multiple hard drives, multiple SD cards? My camera shoots to 2 SD cards at the same time. So in case one was to corrupt, you have a backup. And then just kind of voice your priorities to your photographer. Do you want a lot of family photos? Do you want a lot of bridal party photos? Because if they have in their mind that you don't want a ton of family photos and you want to get to those couple photos, they're going to probably help you get away from the families. They'll try to talk to you and grab more photos with you. And they're on your side. They're your friend. You're working as a photographer for the couple, not for everyone's family there. Yeah, so definitely voice your priorities.
There's a lot of good points that you covered there. And as a corporate event planner myself, I know the amount of work we put into details. And I'm always disappointed when I hire an event photographer and really emphasize, I want the pictures of the particulars. I want the details. I like those close-ups of the centerpieces, which I think is really nice to have after a wedding too, because so many of these couples put so much work into those particular details. So, if that's something that's important to you, make sure to instruct your photographer to take those detail pictures for you. And it's, I think, great when you talk about family photos to give a list, like have an itinerary of
For sure.
what family you're going to want pictures of and when you want pictures. And, if you want candid pictures all through the evening of family, people dancing on the dance floor, those sometimes tend to be the favorites that I know after an event. Those ones that, you didn't even know a photographer was
Mhm.
taken, but they captured the moment and the feelings of the emotion of a wedding.
For sure. And touching on the point of having a list, if you give your photographer a list of every family photo combination you want, can also make that process a whole lot quicker to get you back to enjoying your day.
Yeah.
And also, your day's crazy. You might forget to get a photo with Aunt Mary. So put that on the list. I want the bride with Aunt Mary, so that you get that, and the photographer can have that list and read it out to make sure you get it.
Yeah. And if you don't have a wedding planner, or a day of wedding planner working with you that day, I would really suggest, getting a cousin or an aunt or someone who's organized within your group to organize the family. They know who they are. So you're not searching out family and waiting for Aunt Mary who's talking to Aunt Betty, 300 yards away. Get someone to organize those family photos so you can move on to your day, and it's organized. And like I say, there's not a lot of waiting around and frustration trying to find people.
Yeah, sometimes you have that person in the bridal party who just can talk really loud over someone, and you'll probably know who that is as soon as you think of them. That's the person.
That's the person. What is the benefit of having a second photographer?
So one of the big things for me specifically is I actually I'm going to share my screen here. I do a video at the same time as, it should be going there. I do a video at the same time as full photography coverage. So I do this kind of highlight video as you're seeing now, while also grabbing all the photography clips. This is a great way of not hiring a full video team, but still having an affordable way of having a quick video. The other thing that's great with having two photographers is having them at two places at the same time. So if you have getting ready coverage, you can have someone with the guys, someone with the girls, and you're having both those photos. It's also just more candids, more images throughout the day. As well as if something happens, like at the ceremony or the reception, you can have reaction shots while also having photos of the same thing. So you kind of have those two different angles, which is super helpful. I'm just going to stop this here.
So when a couple signs a contract with the photographer, Jacob, what are the elements within the contract they should look for?
So I've already kind of mentioned a couple things. How soon do you get your photos back? Having backups, what happens if the photographer can't go there? But you want a description from a legal standpoint of all the things that they have that they're going to give you, how many hours of coverage. You want to put down the fees on there, deposits, when you're actually paying, as well as for sure the wedding date. I don't need an exact personally times until you kind of get closer to the wedding, because that can change a bit. But for sure the date, and if you have any locations, everything is signatures of both the photographer and yourself is necessary. And then the other thing for photography, so there's a lot of like rights with images. So you want to look for print rights. So some photographers won't give you print rights to images where they'll sell you every single image. And maybe if that's what you want, then that's great. It'll end up going quite a bit more expensive than what their actual cost is. But if you have print rights, you can take that to wherever you want, print it yourself, and that's a way of saving money.
How far in advance should a couple book their wedding date with a photographer?
Yeah, so this year's a little crazy with that, especially for 2022 is going to be like the most insane year for weddings yet. So definitely be careful with that. That one, if you're looking for 2022, probably the sooner the better. So probably get your venue in, and then right after your venue. Generally, it's about a year and a half in advance, and this is about the same for videographers as well. It also depends on how specific you want one person. If you really want one photographer, maybe book them a little sooner. But if you're open to everybody and you don't really care, then you're probably fine just choosing anyone a little more last minute. But you want to have someone in for sure.
Would you suggest a couple work with the same photographer for their engagement pictures as that's going to be their wedding photographer as well?
Yeah. I'm also gonna. So one of the big things with having engagement photo session is that you get to prepare for wedding photos. So you get to meet your photographer. You see how their work, you see their personality. You get to learn some poses, which is great. You kind of have that test run that goes where you can learn poses, you can learn what looks awkward. I do this kind of like 60-second tutorial on how to pose, how to look natural, which is super convenient. And I think super helpful for couples. And I notice they kind of take those tips and work with them. It removes any jitters you have about actual wedding day photos. So if you already met your photographer and done engagement photos with them, you can see what it's like. It's not having someone new there on your wedding day.
I gotta say, that's amazing.
This one?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. And then the other thing that comes back from this is when you do your engagement photos, let's say you find something that looks awkward. I know I've been at a bridal party and I always thought my hands looked weird in my pockets. And I'm like, why did I do that with every single photo? And if you get those photos back, you can kind of see what looks awkward and go from there. So it's kind of a first trial run where you can learn on that, and you have a feedback loop of having that engagement session when other photos in your wedding, you don't have that feedback loop. But yeah,
So looking at these photos, it looks like you're willing to travel too, to couples if they're getting
I
married
do.
out of
Yeah, if
province.
you're out in BC somewhere, I would love to come out there, but I think everyone's from Windsor here.
When should a couple do that first look on their wedding day?
Yeah.
Those first look photos.
Yeah, so this is entirely up to the couple themselves. So if you don't want to first look and you want to keep traditional, then stay traditional. But if you want to get rid of the kind of those nervous jitters at the beginning of just a whole wedding, if you've actually seen them and you've done photos together, this helps kind of make that ceremony a little easier. And I don't think it ruins the motion of the actual ceremony because it's still, okay, now we're actually getting married. And I think it's still a very beautiful thing, even if you do a first look. It also helps to just have a nice like moment together. It's more private, it's intimate, but it really depends on your schedule too. Because if you do a first look in the morning, you can get all your family photos, your bridal party photos, and your couple photos done and out of the way. That you can do a later afternoon ceremony and go immediately to the reception. But if you're already having a morning ceremony, it might not be an issue, but it really depends on what you want.
What are a few ways to get better wedding photos or videos? Do you have some tips?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the engagement photo session was really helpful. Having that list of all the photos you want. If you're getting ready in a personal home, having no junk or clutter around, because if you have this random McDonald's cup in the back, that's going to show up in your images, and generally the photographer will try to get that out of your images, but the nicer and cleaner it is, the better. Um, for your ceremony, if you please ask your guests, have the officiant ask to have no phones. This is up to you. If you want people to take photos, that's up to you. But if you have someone with like an iPad there, your uncle taking some photos, it shows up in all your images. It can date your images. So it definitely looks better if there's little or no phone usage in the ceremony. The other thing, if you haven't set times yet, and you're booking a photographer right now, ask them what time is good for a ceremony. This depends on every venue, if it's outdoor especially, but there's better lighting at better times of day. If you have a 12 o'clock wedding and it's outside and there's no shade, you're gonna have very harsh shadows coming down, and it does not look flattering, and there's not much they can do about that. Having backup locations in case it rains is also super helpful if you go inside your venue, if you were planning on doing at a park. And yeah, you can also consider hiring, if you want a videographer as well, you can hire one company who does both. I kind of do that hybrid mix. Some companies do full photo, full video coverage, and then generally those styles will be the same if that's what you're looking for.
Okay. And one thing I'd like to mention is golden hour, which is that hour before sunset. So, try to think about that, scooting away with your photographer somewhere outside during that golden hour, because I guarantee you they'll probably be your most favorite pictures of the day. The lighting is superb, right? And perfect.
Yes, and I do encourage this. I'm always peeking out the window to see what the lighting is like, see what the clouds are like. If it's super cloudy, you probably don't want to do it. But it generally is super nice, especially for all summer weddings. You can actually Google future sunset time. So let's say your wedding is October 2nd, 2021, or even 2022. You can Google that time with the location. You don't have to put the location in if it's in Windsor, Google should know. And you can have an idea for, let's say it's 7:57 on that day, and you can plan your wedding based off that. So know that you can Google that.
Yeah. And we talked about video. Do you do videography as well as photography, Jacob?
I do, yeah. So I kind of I can do just photo both, like a little hybrid mix, like kind of what you saw, and also just video. So
Okay. And so often couples think photographer, hiring a photographer is extremely important and they forget the video aspect. And I know after being married for a number of years, being able to pull out that video years later is, really beautiful to be able to show your kids and to bring back those memories live. So, can you discuss why couples, on top of those reasons, might want to capture their day in videography as well?
yes, there is a lot of great videographers in this area. I do video as well. But yeah, it is a very nice way of capturing your wedding. Photos are amazing, but so is video, and I think they complement each other super well. Um, some things look better in video, movement, actions, anything where people are like celebrating and stuff like it. You just can't really see movement and images as much. It's also super easy to share online. Let's say you get a gallery of hundreds of images from your photographer. Sharing like a 5-10 minute video, like montage of your wedding, is super easy to put up on Facebook. And generally that gets, people love seeing that, because you're not watching a full 2-hour wedding video. The other thing is vows, music, toast. That can't be photographed. That's all audio. And that's a beautiful way of remembering. If someone's crying while kind of getting over a speech, maybe you don't want that in the video, but if you do, it is super emotional. And it's a cool way of sharing you and reliving your wedding day.
And the reality is of life is some people who are at our weddings aren't going to be, there maybe in 10 or 20 years. So being able to go back to that video and hear their voice is just a beautiful thing. I'm going to open up the chat. I'm going to ask you one more question, Jacob, before we get to our audience questions. If you're looking for unique photo locations, that's kind of a high priority. Everyone's looking for that location no one else has ever photographed in. Are there any unique locations in our region that you love to shoot at?
Yeah, so it really depends on one of my favorite areas in the area, for engagement photos, especially. It's a little more harder with wedding, is Point Pelee. Point Pelee is beautiful. You have the beaches, you have the forest, you have marsh, you have tons of options there. Um, Talk to your photographer. They should have suggestions too. If you're looking for something more rustic or more foresty, they should be able to give you a list. I have a blog post on my website that kind of goes over some of my favorites, but generally do what's convenient to you. So if you are in Windsor, then do something like Willisted Park, Malden Park, Jackson Park, or like the waterfront. If you're in LaSalle, you have Brunette Park, you have Ojibwe, both beautiful forest options. Amherstburg has Navy Yard Park by the water. Harrow has the old mill. And this area is also full of wineries that you can take photos at. There's a lot of great options. Also keep in mind, if you're in fall, remember to have like trees. So if you go to a location that has no trees, make sure you're embracing those fall colors.
I was at GL Heritage having a flight yesterday, sharing a flight
Okay.
with my husband, and that location is kind of cool because they have fields and they have a vineyard next door. And while we were on there, we were talking about where the greenway starts from that area and how far we could go on our bikes. And there's a trail app which I put on my phone, and when I went to it, there are so many trails right around that area that I had never heard of through woods and parks. So put a trail app on your phone. You might be shocked at what is around you that you don't even know, like
Yes,
forested
yeah.
areas would pass through them.
Yeah, I've always heard of people like from their own location not knowing what's really around them, because you always discover when you're traveling. Good
Yeah.
trail app is All Trails. I do a lot of hiking, so
Yes,
that's the
yes, it
correct
is
place.
all trails. That's the one.
Um,
So it's my goal to take my bike all the way from LaSalle to Leamington or Kingsville this year on one of
oh
those
yeah.
trails. Yeah. How many hours would you recommend to have photography for your big day? And this is from Josh, a question from Josh.
Yeah, so it kind of depends on what you want. Again, voice your priorities of how many family photos you want. How big is your family? How big is your bridal party? So again, it's going to be customized to kind of every wedding, but generally I can get through all the photos in an hour, which is like 20 minutes of family, 20 minutes of bridal party, 20 minutes of the couple. And this can kind of vary a lot. But I generally like to have more time with the couple, as well as that sunset session that you mentioned, another just 10 minutes. It's also a great way if you're having a super busy day to take time out of the day around sunset to be together just as a couple.
So do you know, is it normally like a 6 hour period, an average, or how many hours do you on average spend with most couples?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm thinking actual photography time to
Yeah.
get photos done. For coverage for your wedding day, you kind of want to think about how much getting ready coverage you have. So generally, about 45 minutes to an hour is a good amount of time, depending if one photographer or two, if you have someone going to both locations or you have two different people. So you kind of want to figure out what your getting ready time is, how much buffer space you have. I can't actually give you an exact number. 8 to 10 hours for normal weddings is a good amount of time. But a lot of weddings now are going to like 6 hours because they are smaller. Um, and then kind of your end of coverage will generally be a few songs into dancing. You generally don't want too many more than that.
It used to be that photographers stayed to the end of the wedding till 1 o'clock in the morning. That doesn't happen anymore, right? I mean,
Not
a
as-
dance is a dance is a dance is a dance. You can only get so much dancing pictures. So I think most
yeah,
photographers, get those after dinner pictures with the first dances and the guests getting up on the floor and having some fun, and then they're done for the night, which gives the couples sometimes just to relax too, and they're not being photographed all day long. As a photographer, this is from Brielle. As a photographer, what is your personal favorite part of the wedding day to photograph?
so probably my favorite is the couple sessions. When you can just be off the couple, it's not a whole lot of people, just the two of you. You can kind of just enjoy the day. It's not as crazy. You can walk around, you're laughing together. It's a good time to enjoy the moment. So I think some of those are my favorite moments, and it's not too crazy.
Okay.